questions you ask. So don't hesitate to interrupt me. I like that. So please feel free to do so. Real quickly, why we're all here, we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment, but I'm going to talk about the business model challenge today. All right, and this is a workshop. We tentatively have this room reserved for 2 hours. I don't plan on talking for 2 hours, although I probably could. So, for those that want to stay around afterwards and ask me questions, feel free to do that. I don't think that will take all that long to go through some of what I want to cover today, but we should have time at the end of the workshop to spend some time together one-on-one. Real quick, I didn't even introduce myself. My name is Edmund Pendleton. I work at the Venture Accelerator over at MTech, which sits under the engineering school. For those that don't know, I'm sure that most of you do already know that. Before we get started, I want to tell you a quick little story. So I'm a startup person myself. I'm a former technology entrepreneur, engineer by training, actually physics and math originally, but always had that entrepreneurial bug. Always wanted to start my own company. So after I got out of grad school, I joined a company that was just spinning out of Virginia Tech, believe it or not, another great ACC school. A technology that had been developed at Tech, really to, if folks are familiar with GPS, we had a technology that was similar, but for laser-based applications. And we had what we thought was going to be a revolutionary, earth-shattering new technology that was going to change the way that surveying was done. Surveying meaning what you see people do on the side of the road, right, in construction. Well, in surveying, a lot of the equipment that's used was actually, believe it or not, invented at the time of George Washington. So we thought, heck, this is a great opportunity. That's 200 years old. We can certainly do better than that, right? We had this technology, as I mentioned, that was laser-based, that had some of the attributes of GPS, but was much more accurate, had all these wonderful attributes. And we thought, gosh, I was mid-20s. I thought, I'm going to be, a millionaire by the time I'm 30. I'll be retired by the time I'm 30 for sure. So we actually ended up partnering with a company called Trimble Navigation, which is one of the largest companies in the survey market in construction. They sell almost $1 billion worth of equipment a year. We went through this exhaustive year-long market research effort and technical development effort. We had a team of 10 engineers, 4 marketing people, and I kind of ran all the marketing group. We traveled all over the world, met with all the dealers that Trimble had, showed them what we were planning to release, and to a person, they all said, this is the best thing we have ever seen. When can we place an order? So we come back home. We're like, this is great. We're taking orders for something we haven't even made yet, right? So by the time we got ready to release the product about a year later, we had already filled our channel. So the channel buys the product and resells it. Trimble had never seen this. They'd never seen so many sales roll in at the very beginning into the channel. So the magic day comes. Channel's got the product. We make the announcement that it's ready to go. They take it out to the market. And we're waiting to hit the cash register. I'm waiting to retire. I could see it coming, right? Well, about a month later, something surprising happened. A lot of this equipment started to come back to us. So not only was the channel not selling it, they were sending it back to the factory. And we're like, oh my God, what's going on here? Okay. Well, it turned out that we missed a very key thing. The channel loved it. We had shown them exactly what the product would do. We showed them the interface we developed, software interface. But one of the key things that we had forgotten to really show them was what was involved in setting the product up. So as soon as they took it out to the market and tried to sell it to end users, they said, we're not going to do that. It's great once it's set up, but that takes too much time to get it set up, and that's a non-starter. We're not going to do it. So $5 million later, a $5 million lesson that hopefully what we talk about today will help you avoid that kind of mistake. Okay. Now, there's a good ending to this story. I'll save it for later. But we were able to pivot, another term you'll hear about today, and go into the aerospace market and have a very successful exit of our company. We sold it to a company that acquired us, where this particular issue wasn't an issue in aerospace. But again, I tell you this story just to emphasize again, what we're trying to do today is teach you all how to go out and do the necessary, what we call customer discovery in the beginning, to prevent making what would appear to be obvious mistakes later. You would think what we did was very strange, and who would ever do that? The reality is a lot of companies do that, even established companies. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I always like to start any presentation with the following question, because every time I go to a seminar, I'm always asking this myself. You know, why am I actually here? Okay? Why am I actually here? I'm not going to ask you, but I'm going to show a few answers here. Now, we'll start with the obvious. So there's certainly people here, I'm sure, for the free food, and I'm one of them, so that's fine. And you can think a number of these were going to actually apply to you. I'm sure there's some people here who want to learn more, and that's great. There may be some of you that are looking to find teammates or co-founders in the business idea. I hope that's the case. If not, don't worry about it. We have a lot of students actually that would be interested. So if you are a person that has an idea and you're looking to find folks to work with you, please come to us and let us know, okay? D is buried in here because I didn't want to highlight it. But I'm sure there's some of you that just want some money, right? Who doesn't want money? We're going to talk a little bit about that. But you come to find out that that's not the real purpose of this particular program that we're running. E, test your idea. This is going to be a critical one, okay? And F, of course, start a business. So any of these things could apply to you. Multiple ones could apply to you, okay? We're going to talk about them all in some context. But I really want to emphasize, again, we are focused on helping you test your ideas. And we certainly hope the outcome is you start a business, okay? And if you don't start a business, we hope we've at least put you on the path to do that. Okay, so a little explanation here. Now, some of you probably know we've in the past had what we call the BPC, the Business Plan Competition. And this is a little bit tongue-in-cheek, so don't take it literally. We have changed the way we're going to do things, all right? Now, business plan competitions you've probably heard of. Has anyone here actually entered a business plan competition? Has anyone here ever won any money from entering a business plan competition? Fantastic. Okay. Well, there are a couple things about business plan competitions that I personally don't like. One is they end up being popularity contests. It's just a simple fact, right? Who can present the best? Who stands up and does the best job presenting? And that's an important skill to have if you're a startup. But it isn't necessarily the most important skill, certainly in the beginning. Okay? But it's very difficult for a group of outside judges to come in and judge a business plan competition and not gravitate to the most charismatic speaker, regardless of the idea. Okay? I know this as well because I am an angel investor. I sit on a couple of angel investment, within a couple of angel investment groups, and it's the same thing there. You have people come in and pitch their ideas, and inevitably, it's those that pitch best that will get funded. So ultimately, it's an important skill to have, but it's not what we want to focus on. So that's why we've pivoted away. The other thing is, if you've ever been to a business plan competition or read a business plan, you realize that everybody has the same projection. There's a rule that I always say. It's changing, but the rule I used to use was 50 million in 5 years. Everybody said that, right? Now it's 100 million in 5 years. But it's some variant of that. And we all know it's not reality, right? But you feel like you have to put it in there because you've got to show that you've got a lot of potential in order to get anyone interested in your business idea, right? But we don't want to go to that point. Not right now. That's not the learning that we want to have. And what I'm really going to emphasize today is more doing and less talking. I think this is the Lowe's, DIY slogan, and I'm going to borrow it, but it's the more doing, okay, and less talking. So what we're going to be doing with the business model competition is getting out there, getting your boots dirty, and actually going out and talking to customers. We're not going to spend a lot of time writing business plans or coming up with a pitch and talking about something sort of in the abstract. We're going to actually go out and talk to customers and iterate based on the feedback you get. Okay. So let me give you a little bit of Startup History 101. Why did we have this change in terms of how we run our competition? Well, there have been a lot of changes recently in the way universities, in the way outside organizations like accelerators and others help startups. Since the inception of the Harvard Business School, there's been a class basically that was, how do you write a business plan? And in essence, that's been the entrepreneurship curriculum for many years, right, until recently. And again, it's not that you shouldn't write a business plan at some point, but it's really not where you should start. What we've come to learn is that startups are not smaller versions of large companies. So I want you to actually make sure you keep this in mind, okay, as we go through this exercise. Because a lot of the curriculum that was developed and is taught in business schools and even within certain engineering schools is really directed at companies or organizations that know who their customer is and they're actually executing to a specific plan. Most startups don't know this if you're a true startup. Now, I'm not really speaking here specifically about, say, the mom and pop corner pizzerias or dry cleaners where you kind of do know in essence who your customer is going to be and what you're going to do. I'm talking about startups here that have a new technology, something that hasn't been seen before, right? And what are they actually doing? They're searching. They're searching. They're looking for something. What are they actually looking for? Okay? What they're looking for is what we call a business model. We're going to go into a lot of detail today about what a business model is. And in essence, the holy grail for them is to find a product market fit. And in simple language, all that means is find some folks that want to buy whatever you're building or delivering as a service. Right? Sounds pretty simple, but if you come out with this new gee whiz, we're going to change the world survey technology and no one's ever seen it, then you better go out and talk to people that are actually using survey equipment and make sure that they have a need for it. Don't presume you know better. I presumed I knew better, and shockingly I didn't. Okay. All right, some simple definitions. Business model. The easiest way to think of this is how you make money. If you want a more technical description, it's how you create value, deliver it, and capture value. You might just want to write how you make money, right? The other topic that we're going to talk a lot about today, or method, is called customer discovery. Customer discovery is a whole sort of field, if you will, that sort of evolved out of some work in Silicon Valley by a couple of entrepreneurs, one of them being Steve Blank, if anyone knows who he is. To simplify it, though, I'm going to just say customer discovery for our purposes is going to be how you test and iterate your business model. Okay? So you keep these two concepts clear in your mind because I'm going to reference these throughout the course of the day, and if you have any questions, certainly let me know. But this is really going to be the focus of our efforts. Helping you create a viable business model using customer discovery to get there. Customer discovery is the process we're going to use to iterate to get to a business model that's actually viable and scalable. Okay? I like to say there's sort of a startup timeline that sort of follows this general trajectory. Usually you have an idea, right? So who here has an idea for a business? Okay, most of you probably already have an idea. That's fine if you don't. As I mentioned, if you don't, you want to be paired with somebody that does, let us know. But usually you start with an idea. Then there are these two interrelated processes, again, that I just talked about. Customer discovery and business model generation. Now, we at MTech have just rolled out what we call our MCore program. At a very high level, all that is a method, if you come in and work with us, where we will walk you through these processes, okay? It could be over 4 to 6 weeks. It could be spread over a semester. It can be done at your own pace. But in essence, what we do with our MCore program is we really focus on customer discovery, finding out who your customer is, what they want, and building a business model that meets the needs or the pains that the customer has. That's where we want to spend our time. At some later time, once you've nailed this, okay, then you can work on your investor pitch. Then you need to raise money. But you will not, if you come to us, be working on an investor pitch or a business plan until you've done this. Okay? Because if you do this well, you'll find that raising money is a whole lot easier. When you stand up in front of a group of angel investors or venture capitalists and you say, you know what, I've talked to 200 customers, and I originally thought this, but I learned that, and now I'm doing this, you're going to immediately have credibility because they know you've been out and talked to them. And here's the sort of dirty little secret with most investors. They don't really know what you know. They don't know your market as well as you do most of the time. Every now and then you'll run into somebody that does have experience and he maybe more than you. So you got to be careful. But most of the time they don't know. So they're conceding the fact that, look, you're the expert. But they are thinking we are, or I am, the business expert. So show me what you've done. Okay? So as soon as you can stand up and say, you know, I've talked to 100, 200 customers, and this is what I've learned, you're going to have that instant credibility. You'll certainly be farther ahead than most. Okay? So let's talk a little bit about some of the tools that we're going to use in this process. And again, please, I know no one said anything or thrown your hand up yet or interrupted me. Feel free to do that. Let's talk about some of the tools. Now, I did have a handout out front. If you didn't have a chance to pick it up, pick one up on the way out. We use something called the Business Model Canvas. It was created by a gentleman by the name of Alex Osterwalder, and you see the book in the bottom right corner here. The book is a great book. I'd recommend you pick it up. Not very expensive. If you're in true startup mode, I actually recommend that you go get the free PDF preview of the first 2 chapters. Because as with most people and most students, what do? You read the first 2 chapters and that's all you really need, and in this case, it pretty much is true. So, if you don't want to buy the book, get the free PDF preview. That's going to have enough information to get you started. If you could boil this book down to 1 page, though, it's this page. This is what everybody uses. Okay? This is the framework that's going to help us think about what your business has to consider. Okay? Now, there are 9 segments of a, quote, business model, as you see on this canvas. It's called the Business Model Canvas. By the way, you can find it online, too, if you don't pick up one of these sheets. And what we do in our MCOR process, and what we will do if you apply and you get into this business model challenge, is we're going to help walk you through these segments. Now, having said that, I'm going to be honest and say the reality is we won't get to all 9. Okay? We're going to spend a lot of time with customer segments, which are up here in the top right, and value propositions, which we'll spend a few minutes talking about here in a few slides. Okay? But in essence, if you can fill out this chart and you've validated your concepts by talking to people in the market, you're going to have a great start to your business. You will have something to write an investor pitch about, or you will have something to write a business plan about if that's the way you decide to go. If you're really good, my goal is that you will never have to write a business plan. Right? You do your investor pitch right, you're going to be able to raise money without the plan. All right. Now, I put up here real quickly, don't worry about reading it, a sample of a business model canvas. This happens to be a canvas that I did with a company that came through our process over at MTech. They had a brand new technology for what was called 3D audio. So you're wearing headphones, and instead of hearing sound coming in left and right ears now, the headphones almost disappear because you can hear sounds above you and behind you and all around you while you're wearing headphones. So it's very revolutionary technology. Okay? They thought, well, you know what? We're going to change the way people use headphones. Sounds a lot like my story, right? We're going to change the way people survey. We have all these applications. They went down the whole list of them, you know, from entertainment to acoustic analysis, all kinds of crazy things. Sure enough, though, we thought, we really need to focus. We need to pick a market to start with. We're going to talk a lot about this, okay? Because what most people do when they first fill out the customer segments, and you're all going to do it, you're going to list 10 or 5. Oh, there are a lot of these customer segments that want my stuff, right? We really want you to pick one in the beginning, and hopefully the one you think maybe has the most potential, or for you might be the easiest to get to. So in the case of the audio company, what they did is they said, you know, gaming is a pretty good application, because think about games for a minute, right? A game is already a 3D world. It's a 3D environment that's created in a computer. It already exists. So all we have to do is have a sound emanate from a particular location within a 3D world, virtual world now, That's easy enough for us to do. So let's do games. And who doesn't like games, right? Really? Who doesn't like games? Games are great. So we said, okay, sounds good. Let's start with mobile games, because everybody knows no one plays console games anymore, right? They're all carrying around their iPhones. They're playing games all the time. I have kids. They're basically bankrupting me, buying all these games. Like, okay, we're going to go after mobile games. So we went through this process. We talked to 10 mobile game developers. And to a person, they said, that's the dumbest damn thing we have ever heard. We're like, why is that? Well, they said, because first of all, most people that play games with iPhones, they're not even using their earbuds. And secondly, have you checked out how much those games sell for? Yeah, $2. And do you know what the longevity of the games is, the shelf life? 2 weeks. So we don't spend any time worrying about audio. So don't come and talk to us about putting in special cool little audio features, because the reality is we don't use any. We basically have very basic audio. But you know what you ought to do? You ought to talk to some PC gamers. So that's what we did next. And sure enough, we found out that not only did PC gamers value it, they spent a ton of money. Any PC gamers in here? Yeah. You probably, I didn't realize this, but a lot of them spend a ton of money on peripherals and other things. Realism is important, right? So we found that actually the PC gamers, much better market for us. Okay, well, think about it for a minute. So you're a PC gamer. You like this 3D audio. You love it. You want it in your game. Well, guess what? We're the company now. How do we get it into your game? This was a real challenge. Well, now the end user, the gamer, is not the person really using our technology. We've got to convince somebody else. Who is this other person we have to convince? Well, in the gaming world, as probably most of you know better than I do, there are companies out there to develop games, right? Publishers, and sell them. But there are also people that build games, so they can be hired by the publishers. And so you kind of dig down deep and you realize, oh, okay, so we have to talk to these folks that actually make the games, right? They develop the games. It's like an architect who makes a plan, right, for a building. You have the same thing for games, people who develop games. So we went and talked to them. And you know what they said? This is really cool. This is really cool, but we're not changing what we do. Thank you very much. Because if we change what we do, you're just going to take more of our time, and we're not sure anybody wants it. It's very cool, by the way, but we're not sure anybody really wants it. Maybe you should talk to these specialty companies that we use from time to time that make tools, real specialized software tools. Some of them mimic the effects of gravity. Anybody here ever driven a racing game? The physics and all that behind it, really specialized. So they said, why don't you talk to people that make these specialty tools? So we finally got a hold of someone who said, yeah, we like that idea because we sell audio tools, and guess what? We're always trying to figure out what the next great thing is so that we can actually stay independent and be valued by the development community. So yes, we're interested. But it took us a while, probably 50 or 60 customers, until we got to the point where we actually found the right organization that would actually buy the thing that this company had worked for 6 years on and invested almost $6 million into. Had a variety of other applications, right? But it took us that many interviews. And all of a sudden the light bulb went off. We're like, oh, this is fantastic. Okay, now we have something. Okay. More to come on that story, but I'm going to switch gears and keep going for a moment. I showed you the 9 segments. For those that have the handout, on the back side, there is sort of the close-in view, if you will, of the customer segments and value propositions. I like to say this is the only thing that matters. If you do not get this right, it does not matter what your cost structure is. It doesn't matter who you think your key partners are. If you don't actually know who is going to buy your thing and why, you're not going to have a business, right? So you really have to start here. For all of you with an idea, you don't have to do it now, but you can if you want, I want you to think about this, and I want you to list, when you go home or as you're sitting here listening to me, what you think your customer segments are, and then why you think they would actually buy whatever it is that you expect to offer, whether that's a product or a service, okay? Some typical value propositions. These are not all that hard to understand, although they can be hard to find for your product. Is it that you're doing something faster for them? Are you doing something they could not do before, right? Are you saving them money? What is the real essence of what it is that you're doing? It's not, they're not going to buy your thing because of the cool technology. They're going to buy it because you're solving a problem for them, right? You're meeting a need they have. You're alleviating a pain that they have. So you really have to dig down deep to find out what it is that your customer actually values, okay? And we're going to talk a little bit more about that here as we go forward. Now, I realize there are a lot of words here and a fairly complex looking graph. So I'm going to try to keep this fairly simple, okay? When you look at the value proposition and customer segment parts or pieces of the canvas, we like to say the value proposition is the what. It kind of answers the what. What is it that you're going to be offering? Okay, and I'll get to that in a moment. And the customer segment is kind of answers the question of why. You know, why is the customer segment going to buy it? Okay, and ultimately, what we're driving towards in the process that we're going to walk you through is the following. We want to get you to the point where you can introduce what's called a minimum viable product, which I'll talk about in a moment, and so that you can identify exactly who your customer archetype is. Now, let me explain how that's different than a customer segment. A customer segment for us, let's say, were companies that made software tools for the gaming industry, specifically PC gaming. The customer archetype, though, in this case, would have been a senior developer at that company who was in charge of audio. Yeah, and they had different types of titles. But when I say customer archetype, I want you to think of a person specifically that you think is going to be in multiple organizations that you're going to sell to. Okay? By title. What does this person read? What journals do they read? What trade shows do they attend? What do they do all day? And what are their pain points, right? What are the things they're looking to, as we say, alleviate pain, or what types of gains are they looking to get? Okay. All right. So we really want to drive you all the way down to where you can identify as specifically as possible your real live customer. Now, we're getting way out on a limb here, and I've probably lost you somewhere along the way, so let me also come back and say the following. One of the trickiest things for most people to grasp is that you actually have multiple customers in most markets. So, what do I mean by that? Well, let's take the audio example for a moment. Okay, we had an end user, that's the gamer. Okay? But in reality, the gamer, in our case, wasn't going to pay us directly. They were going to buy the game, which would have already had our technology and the actual capability embedded in it, right? So there are also not just end users, they're buyers. Who's going to buy? Who's the influencer? Because often the person buying gets influenced by others within the organization. Who's the decision maker? For a simple consumer product, maybe it's the same person. For a technical product, these are often different people. Who are the saboteurs? Who in the company you're trying to sell to is going to say, that crap won't work, I tried it, it won't work. Or because they're going to buy your thing, they might lose their job or lose some sort of status in the company. So you always have to be aware. There's not just one customer, there are multiple customer types. And you need to know who these folks are. And you need to talk to those types of moment to talk a little bit about the concept we call the minimum viable product. For those that have seen the book by Eric Ries, this is where the term comes from. If you haven't seen the book, I would recommend it. It's a fantastic book. It's a pretty easy read. And it talks very specifically about the concept of a lean startup. A lot of the things that we talk about and a lot of the methodologies that we use are embraced by the lean startup movement, but there's some that go beyond that in the book. Now, the minimum viable product is the following concept. Okay, so what we did is we said, all right, for my laser-based gee whiz technology, we're going to spend a year, and even then that was a short amount of time, and we're going to build the perfect product. And when we get the perfect product built, we're going to take it to the market. And then we're just going to hit the cash register, right? Every time someone sells it, which is going to be often, right? We knew this. The minimum viable product is something different. A minimum viable product is the following. It's the minimum you need to put in the product for an early adopter to use it, so that you can get feedback from some of the early adopter customers. Now, what's so special about early adopter customers? Some of you are probably early adopters. Almost by nature, entrepreneurs are early adopters, right? You're willing to use Google Maps because half the time it crashes and doesn't really work right. Now, of course, now that's the new Apple Maps, but I can tell you, Google Maps was that way in the beginning, and it was crap. But you keep using it because, well, you expect there to be bugs there, but you're getting some value out of it, right? So a minimum viable product, the concept is the following. Don't put more in the product than you need to get some early customer feedback. Don't try to build the perfect product. This is totally, by the way, counterintuitive to most engineers. Are there any engineers in the room? Okay. Yeah. No one likes to be wrong, and everyone wants their thing to be perfect, right? So you spend a lot of time. It's never good enough for you, right? This is inevitable. You're not building this for yourself, though. Remember, you're building it for customers to use. So you want to be able to get something out there that they can use and you can start getting some feedback from. There are some markets you can't release a new drug that's going to have bugs in it and fail and create major issues. But a lot of markets, particularly software markets, it's certainly possible. In fact, anybody here that uses software knows they basically embrace this wholeheartedly, right? Buggy in the beginning, it gets better over time, right? The concept of a minimum viable product, though, is build something that you can get out and start getting some feedback from. Now, a lot of you will not get to this stage, probably in the business model challenge realm, where we'll work with you for 4 to 6 weeks. But hopefully we can help you get there over time. Now, some of you may come in already with a minimum viable product, and that's a different story. We'll talk about that too. But I did want to introduce this concept because you'll hear a lot about it in the lean startup world. Now, just to kind of summarize, if you're a fan and you've read about lean startup principles, there are really sort of 3 basic pillars. We've already talked about the business model, how you make money. And we've talked about customer development sort of in the abstract, which is how you test and iterate your business model. But then there's this concept of agile development. And again, this is where it ties back into the MVP. The concept is basically, let's work in small batch sizes. You know where the term lean comes from? It comes from lean manufacturing. And I'll simplify it at a real simple level because I'm a simple person. Lean manufacturing, one of the key concepts was, if we're going to screw up a widget, let's just screw up one of them, not a million of them, right? Small batch sizes. So any mistakes get caught early and there's a minimum amount of waste. Same with lean startup concepts and agile development. Let's build, in the world of software code, small pieces of code or modules that we can test. And if it works, we'll put it into our product. If it doesn't, we'll throw it out, right? Again, the idea is not to build a perfect product. And I mentioned, not many of you will probably get to that stage in our challenge, but we are here to help you get to that stage overall through our work at MTech. Okay. These are the go-to resources that we use in the way of books. You're going to have access to these. I would recommend, if you want to go out and buy them, you can go ahead and do that now. The Business Model Generation book is very inexpensive. As I mentioned, I would recommend the preview first because you get a lot out of the free PDF preview. The Lean Startup book is very inexpensive. I think it's less than $20 now. And I would also recommend that book. Now, there's another one we use by Steve Blank. And Steve is really the godfather of a lot of the methodologies that we use and teach. Okay? And he has a really nice reference book called the Startup Owner's Manual. And I love the book. It's pretty big, and it's pretty dense. And it's meant to be a reference book. I can honestly say I haven't personally read it from start to finish either. But I've read parts and pieces of it that are relevant to what we're working on. But these are the books that we use. If you have the first two, you're probably going to have more than enough to read. Okay? And if you get into the Business Model Challenge, we're going to walk you through a lot of this stuff anyway. Okay? And we have copies of the book. If anyone wants to come over and borrow it and talk to us, we'd be happy to do that and let you take a look at them. There's another concept that we've adopted, and to the extent that we can, we're going to utilize this within the Business Model Challenge. If you get into it and you come into our sort of MCore program that I'm going to talk about, we use online videos that Steve Blank has actually developed. Now, Steve started a class called the Lean Launchpad out at Stanford many years ago, and now basically this course is offered through Udacity. And you can go on Udacity at any point and sign up for free and watch the videos. Okay, these are fantastic videos. We not only use them for what we do at MTech through our MCore program, we actually are very involved with a program that NSF started called the Innovation Core, or I-Core. Okay, and the I-Core program every year puts about 150 to 200 technical teams through an 8-week boot camp-like process where they do exactly what we've just talked about. They go out and talk to over 100 customers. They use customer discovery to iterate and find business models for their technologies. Okay, and they use these videos as well. So I've watched them many times. They're very good. And if you had to prioritize, I'd say start with the videos, then the books. But you can do it in conjunction. Okay. But again, if you apply for and get in to the second round of our Business Model Challenge, we're going to utilize some of these things. But there's no reason to wait. You don't have to wait. You don't want to. So let's talk a little bit about what the Business Model Challenge actually entails. Okay? There are really 3 phases. And you can see this on the website. And I'm going to summarize it here. Phase 1, you submit an executive summary. And you submit a 3-minute video about your concept, your business idea, right? At that point, after we receive those, there will be a judging of the best ones. There will be some awards given. And then, more importantly, there will be teams that we select to interview to see if they, A, want to come into, and B, are appropriate to come into what we call our 4-week MCore program. Okay? Don't get hung up on MCore, the name. MCore is just a shortened version of what I like to say is our customer discovery business model generation process. Okay? So we're going to put you through a 4-week sort of condensed version of what we would typically do with startups that come to us, through other means. All right? We're going to put you through just enough to get you a taste of what it's like and for you to really vet your early ideas. Okay? If you get into step 2, and this is how it differs from a business plan. A business plan, the most popular teams, they get a check, and guess what happens? You would think they'd go start a business, right? Most of them don't. That's not the purpose for us of distributing the money. So this is another reason we've changed. When you get into the 4-week program, you will be awarded a certain amount of money. And that money is expected to help cover some of your costs for going out and doing customer interviews. Because what you're going to really be doing in those 4 weeks is what we say, getting out of the building. Okay, you'll hear Steve Blank say this all the time. If you could boil it all down into one tagline, that's the tagline. As Steve likes to say, there are no facts inside the building. Not in this exercise. Right? It's not a pedagogical exercise. This is an experiential exercise. So you have to get out of the building and go talk to prospective customers. All right? So once you get into the MCOR program, it's an honor to get into it. I'll say that. And you're going to get money. And every team's going to get the same amount. We're not picking winners here. Winners are the ones that get in. Okay? Then you get money to help you go do this customer discovery, cover some of your costs of travel and whatnot. Our goal for you over 4 weeks is not as high as talking to 100 customers, although I'd like to see some of you get there, but at least get to 30 to 50. 10 is not enough. 20 is really not enough. 30, you start to get some feedback that you can start to say you're recognizing certain patterns, right? It's all about sample sizes, right? Increasing your probabilities of success. For those teams that go through the process, okay, and once you complete it, because you're going to get some money to come in, and you're going to get some money to complete it. We don't want teams to come in and say, yeah, okay, we'll do this, take the check and run, because that isn't the idea either. We want to see that you're completing the process. That's the point. So money will be tied to finishing that 4-week curriculum, not just starting it, okay? There'll be a third opportunity to earn a little bit more cash, which will be we're going to have final presentations. But this is going to be completely different than anything you've ever seen, okay? If you stand up and you say, you know what, we had this great idea. We had this technology that was going to change the survey world. We had this technology that was going to change the audio world. But after 4 weeks, you stand up and you say, we talked to 50 customers and we realized we don't have anything. They don't want it. That's not a bad outcome. In our world, that's equally good as someone standing up and saying, we talked to 50 and we think we have something. Because we're about teaching you a process that you can take with you and use for subsequent ideas. We're not going to get all the way there in 4 weeks. We probably wouldn't get there in 2 to 3 months either. This is a process you're going to have to continue, right, to really be successful. So we're not going to judge you based on, is your idea a good one? Because first of all, we probably don't know if the idea is a good one anyway. And anyone that's ever done investments can tell you the same thing. We'll raise our hand and act like we know what we're doing. We're smart, right? We're investing money. We must be smart. The reality is we often don't know. We're betting on the team. We're betting on gut or instinct. We want you to go out to the market. Let the market tell you whether you have something. Don't expect us to tell you whether it's a good idea. We may have a hunch, but we're probably not right. Yes?
Once you say get out to the market, are you talking about like having a prototype, going to people and trying to see what they think of the product? Or?
Excellent question. I'm glad you brought that up. The question was, do I need a product or a prototype? We would highly discourage that, okay, in the beginning, and this is why. Because most of the time, if you go out with your product or prototype, the very first thing you want to do is you want to say, well, you know, isn't this cool? Watch how this works. And you start doing all this stuff, and what you're not doing is listening. What you're doing is you're telling. You're talking to the customer. Don't you like this? And most people, present company included, are pretty nice. And we're going to say, yeah, that's pretty neat. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. When you get that done, why don't you come back and talk to me? And what that really means is I got email to check, right? Come back to me when it works. Because what really is going to find out is when you go back and you say, hey, will you pay for this? It's going to be a completely different answer. So what we really want folks to do in the beginning, and this is hard, so I'm going to spend a little time on it, is talk to potential customers that you think will be in your target market and understand what their daily jobs are today, what their common pain points are, what types of things or benefits are they looking to get to make their jobs easier. And try to do this to the extent that you can outside the context of your product. Now, having said that, there's a juggling, right? Because ultimately, you're trying to get some feedback on whether your idea is a good one. But in the beginning, we want you to do more listening than talking. There's always the chance, or there's always an opportunity later to come back. So here, let me tell you how we kind of did with this audio technology. We would call companies and say, you know, we know that you are an expert in audio for the gaming industry. And we know nothing about gaming. But what we do know is that we've spent and invested, I should say invested, not spent, invested $6 million in 6 years of time into developing a very interesting audio technology that we think might have some application in gaming. Can you talk to us, right? So we would go talk to them, we'd try to understand what their problems and pains were before we talk anything about specifically about our technology. Now, having said that, it's a trade-off, but to the extent that you can, we want you to, in the very beginning, to not focus on your technology or your prototype, okay? Because inevitably everybody does the same thing. You're very proud of it. And you're going to want to spend a lot of time on it. As a former salesperson, I can tell you that the best sales calls are always the demos you never do. So it's good practice for when you actually do a sales call, right? Ultimately, demos are always tricky, you know, in sort of the live context. So we encourage you to go out and really try to understand a day in the life of your potential customer. And right now that has nothing to do with your technology, okay? So does that make sense? I can't say it's easy to do, because I personally found it hard to do when we went out and did it. But that's what we're striving for.
So at this stage, you should have the pattern and all of that stuff.
At this stage, I'm sorry.
Trademark and the patent.
Oh, well, again, if you're coming into this, you don't have to have a patent or any trade secrets or anything necessarily proprietary. Of course, if you do come in and you have that, that's great, right? Keep in mind the following, though, and another good point, I'm glad you had the second follow-up question, is that you should not be disclosing to anyone at this point in time anything that's really that detailed about your technology, right? Again, it's not about your technology, it's about the customer's problem. And oh, you know what? When we would talk about 3D audio, we didn't tell them how it worked. We just said, we can do the following. And is the following valuable to you? Not this is how we do the following and why we're so smart. We didn't do that, right? So don't worry. I mean, you're not going to be disclosing things at this level of conversation. And that's a key point. I'm also glad you brought that up, okay? We won't be disclosing anything. Again, you're there to understand the customer, not to sell them on your technology. At some point, of course, you transition them to, well, if you could do this, would that be helpful, and that kind of thing. But you're not talking about how it works. You're talking about, in their language, what are the benefits? What are the value propositions, right? For us, it was we create a more immersive experience. Not that we do this and we position sound over here. And it's no. We create a more immersive gaming experience. You will not even know you have headphones on, right? Okay, any other questions? Yes?
All right, so on number 2, you know, this is before we program and you start doing this customer validation. All right, so presumably before you get to you have to apply to get into the program, you have the executive summary. So presumably you did not do that much or that thorough of customer validation until you got to the program. So how much of that would be
expected?
Necessary?
Yeah. We're not expecting that you have done any of that at this stage. I mean, you know, obviously, if some of you have gone out and talked to people, that's great. You know, that's wonderful. But with the executive summary and 3-minute videos, we're trying to get a sense for the ideas, the time people put in, what, you know, in general, what they want to do, right? If you can say that we've gone out, we've talked to a handful of customers, that's great too. But we're really expecting, again, that to happen in sort of phase 2. Now, that's not to say don't do it. If any of you want to go start doing it, I would never say wait. But I'm just telling you that the focus in that that step number 2 is going to be heavy duty going out and talking to people, okay? We're going to help you through that process. And we're going to give you a framework behind it. Because one of the other things, real quickly, is that, oh, it's all fine and good. This is what people do. I've worked with the NSF. We have 30 teams going through a program at a time. And people are scared to death about making, you know, cold calls. Worst thing in the world, right? If you don't like to be rejected, you're not going to like, you know, your cold calling. So this is one of the more important lessons you learn in going through this, is how to actually cold call someone or call them up or just go meet them, right? You also have to be focused in what you ask them, though. So you have to, we'll walk you through this process. We're going to start with a hypothesis, excuse me. What do you want to know? And then you're going to craft your questions based on that, okay? So that when you talk to customers, you're collecting information about a particular hypothesis that you have. You're not just shooting the breeze and hoping something comes out. So when we do the 4-week program, we're going to spend a lot of time helping you understand that process too. So yes, go talk to customers. That's a great thing. But we'll spend a lot of time making sure that it's a very disciplined approach and that you are going and asking questions with the intent of getting specific information, not just random talking, right? Okay, that makes sense? So that's another advantage of coming through the program is we're going to spend a lot of time on crafting the questions, describing how you need to set up your hypotheses and test them. Okay? It's very much, this process is very much based on the scientific method. And this is why every engineer in this room ought to love this idea. Because there's been a discussion from the beginning of time when it comes to teaching entrepreneurship. Those that believe it can be taught and those that believe it can't be taught. Right? I obviously believe it can be taught. I'm not going to tell you I can teach you to be Steve Jobs, but I can tell you that I can teach you the skills and the tools that you need to be an entrepreneur. Okay? So, question I know in the back of the room first, real quick.
Yes. So, if I understand correctly, so you're looking for, so the first step you're looking for people who have, so kind of concepts for at the pilot stage of business, correct?
Yes. You know, yes. So,
and
go ahead.
Next question is, so when would the executive summary for it?
When would it be due?
Yeah.
Kim, do you remember the date exactly? Yeah. Can you say that again? Yeah, so the 22nd. Sorry, I should have put the dates up here and I didn't remember off the top of my head. So February 22nd, the executive summary and 3-minute videos have to be in. Okay? Now, as you can see, there's not a lot of detail. Well, what do you want in the executive summary? What do you want in the video? We're looking for a little creativity too. Okay? So this is why we have that opportunity for you to put together a video. All right? It's very hard for us to really assess, based on an executive summary and a 3-minute video, who has the, quote, most potential. Remember, that's not something that anyone's particularly good at doing. But we're going to look through the ideas. We're going to pick the teams that we think have the best chance of getting through this successfully. That doesn't mean if you don't get picked that you can't come and talk to us about your idea and we can't help you get farther along. Okay, so if anyone here applies and doesn't get in, and there will be some, I don't want you to feel rejected or feel like that's necessarily a judgment of your idea. It's not. Okay? So come and talk to us. All right? It may be a judgment of where you are in the process and where we think we can most get you to in that 4 weeks. I'm going to start here and then go back because I saw your hand first.
Yes. Is there a limit to the technology, or is there like you only want technological ideas, or where do you go with that?
Right. Well, you know, it's a good question. We've had this debate too. I mean, traditionally the MTech business plan competition has always had a technology focus. We're in the engineering school, and that's where our bread and butter is, and that's where our hearts are. We try to keep that fairly widely defined, or broadly defined, I should say, so that, you know, if you could be, for example, creating a software as a service business, and I would consider that technology enough, right? Now, so you don't have to have some specialty gizmo. I don't want anybody to think you got to have some sort of gizmo. It could be a service, right? And a service, specifically in this case, you know, like software as a service, is very technology-based. Okay. So I hope that answers the question. Be too literal about it. But anybody go to the business planning competition last year, Cupid's Cup? Anybody go to Cupid's Cup? Does anyone remember who won?
Yeah, the zombie race.
The zombie race. I love that. It wouldn't get into our business model challenge because it's not. Yeah, there's not technology there. I love the concept, but it wouldn't get into our business model challenge. It's a good example. Yes.
What about if your customer is like the consumer, just the average consumer? It's something that a
Right.
lot of people have used,
Right.
and it's sort of disruptive what you're doing. It's like say if you for an example, like take something like Twitter. How would you do what you're doing for
Right.
something like Twitter, which isn't like you're selling it to, guys who are surveyors or some
Right.
market segment. It's like broad numbers of people use it, and I think
Right.
if anybody ever described Twitter to me before they created it, I would have said, what the heck do I need that for?
Right. Right.
And so I'm just wondering how it would apply to something like that.
Right. It's a very good question. We don't draw any distinctions, first of all. I mean, if it's a product or a service, it's going to be for the mass consumer market. The primary distinction is the fact that you kind of already brought up, which is you need a lot more people in that funnel. You need to talk to a lot more people because inevitably they're going to be very different. You know, your customer archetype is not going to be very easy to pin down. It's not like a surveyor that does blank and it's obvious who that person is. It could be, you know, in my case, like you, I didn't know what Twitter's for, and I still don't use it, and I feel like I'm behind the times. My kids use it. That's how they communicate. No more email, no more Facebook. It's only Twitter, right? I guess people are interested in what they have to think or say. I don't know. They wouldn't think that I have an interest, I guess. So I think the real distinction is you got to talk to more people. It is a little more of a challenge, right, because you're trying to reach a broader market. Now, on the other hand, the advantage is you're surrounded by potential customers. It's not hard to find them, so to speak, right? So it's easier to identify people to talk to. It's a little messier process because it's not clear in the beginning who you want to talk to. But we also will say the following. Everybody, or not everybody, but most people say, I've got something disruptive. You've never seen anything like it before, right? And this is a common belief. And I'm not saying that yours isn't that. It could very well be that. But we try to get people to focus in very narrowly in the beginning. Don't build Twitter in a day, but what is it exactly that you're going to do in the very initial stages to get out there and test a concept, right?
Well, that's why I'm kind of wondering if it's something like that, it would be easier to just like put up a minimal prototype and if it's a
Yes.
software service
Yep.
on the web, which is what mine
Yep.
is,
Yep.
and then just watch people interact with it. I've done a lot of software in my life, and believe me,
Right.
you put something on the web,
Yep.
people will interact with
Right.
it in ways you
Yep.
never thought.
No, and that's a fantastic point, and that's exactly right. So, and that's why, and I didn't go into it today, but we do distinguish between web-based, software-based companies and those that aren't, because it's easier to create a minimum viable product. And you brought up a great example for a web-based service or product where you can get it out there and start getting feedback. So you inherently have an advantage in a sense. This methodology grew out of a lot of software development methodology, right, where you can put things out there and test them. So if you have something you can put out and start getting feedback, that's fantastic. And really, you know, web-based service is a perfect example of where you can get that immediate feedback, right?
Yeah, because I'm thinking like with consumers, I mean, you know, should you take your time interviewing
Right.
or would it be better to try to spend your time with someone,
Yeah.
maybe get a student job to build the web
Yeah.
service and then just put it out there and maybe, you know, like make a comment section or say email
Right.
us feedback or,
Right.
you know, have a beta or
Right.
a different,
Right.
maybe
There-
with friends or something.
It's a great point, and I'll step back and say there are no absolutes. Everything I've said, and even when I've said it with conviction, doesn't mean that it's an absolute rule. There's always sort of a bit of a spectrum here. You brought up an excellent example. I would encourage you, to talk to people, but the sooner you can put something in front of them and get live feedback, the better. Because to you, right, you can reach a wide number of people more easily by putting something on the website and then driving people to it.
Right. I mean, 100
Yeah.
would be,
Yeah.
you know, probably pretty easy.
Right.
1,000 like would be pretty
Exactly.
promoted or something. You could like.
That's exactly right.
And it's hard to
Yep.
describe, but when
Right.
people see it,
Yep.
if nothing else, they might just say, well, I still can't figure it out, and that's important
Right.
feedback.
No, exactly. No, you're exactly right. Exactly. So anyone that has a product like that or service like that, we'll talk specifically about how it might vary a little bit than say like a real hardware product or something else. But you're exactly right. If you can put it out there and get it in the customer's hands easily, you can get more feedback, and it's just going to help to reach more people. Yes.
I'd say, I mean, going off that, Twitter didn't just put it out there. They had a clear market. They went to South by Southwest and said, hey, text me what you're doing right now. So everyone at South by Southwest did that. It's a specific market. They went to market targeting the music individuals who talk about it. So they didn't just throw something out there.
Right.
It was all felt. So I think you should target it down a little bit more. So even something like Twitter to be very, very specific to people. That's how you test it.
That's right. That's right. You can always be, put it out there for a lot of folks to test and be somewhat targeted in the folks that you want to test it.
Well,
Right.
you have to be because,
Right.
like,
That's right.
you're not going to pick
That's right.
everybody. You're maybe going to take
That's
people
right.
who know early adopters, techie people,
Right.
cheeky.
Exactly.
It's going to be somewhat selective because there's certain, like, if you've ever read the Crossing the Chasm book, there's
Yeah.
early adopters,
Yep.
they're the ones who are going to play with it.
Yep.
So it's only, after a
Right.
while when all of them are doing it, that
That's right. And keep in mind, for this exercise, we're not trying to get you to cross the chasm.
Okay,
But we're trying to get you to the edge of it. But yeah, I understand. All right. Yeah. Any other Other questions? Anything else?
Yeah,
Oh.
when do you have to assemble your team? Step two, that's step by step.
Yeah, that's right. You don't have to have a team to submit an executive summary in the video pitch. And in some ways, too, but I can tell you that it will be preferable for us. And the primary reason, there are two reasons. One, if you look at statistics, most startups fail. We all know that, right? We've heard this. Everybody's heard this. If you look at single founder, sole founder startups, they fail at a much higher rate than multi-founder startups. The obvious reason is because it's very easy to have groupthink when there's only one of you, right? And you're going to definitely do it this way, and you never have anybody checking your ideas. So we would like it to be a team. And the second reason to have a team, for just make sure you're bouncing ideas off one another. The second reason is because we're going to require you to talk to a lot of people. It's going to be a lot easier for you to talk to more people as a team than as a single individual. Now, some of the interviews you might conduct as a team will encourage that, but some of the interviews you may conduct as individuals so that you can actually reach out to more customers. So we would prefer teams. That doesn't mean we won't take a single individual team. We might. I can't say that we won't do it. I'm just saying that I think for most of you, you'll get more out of it coming into this if there are a couple people on your team. Any other questions? Okay. I think we're getting close. Okay. So kind of bring us back to what we're trying to do here. Okay. Again, our goal is not to give you money for spring break, or money to fund your lab, or money to just do whatever you want. Our goal is to help you find a viable business model. That's why we're doing it the way we are this year. Okay? We're going to give you some money to use to help you do that. But this is our goal, is to help you discover a viable business model. Now, secondary to that, or in some ways almost primary to it, is that we're teaching you a process. Even if you don't end up with a viable business model at the end of this process, I hope that you will take away the tools, the things that we've used so that you can validate future ideas. Even better, I hope that you continue working with us and we ultimately get you to this point, okay? All right? But that's our goal. I want to reiterate that. And finally, again, engineers, mathematicians, scientists in the room. Most people don't understand probability, right? Our goal here is to increase your probability of success. We're not going to guarantee it. We're not going to turn you into Steve Jobs, or Bill Gates, right? But what we hope to do is increase your probability for success. That's the concept. Because again, a lot of startups fail. A lot of startups that go through this process are also going to fail. But hopefully fewer. And I wouldn't even say hopefully. I would say I know for a fact that had my company adopted some of this, that we would have saved millions of dollars and many years. So let me go back to finish my story. So I started out with this GWiz technology. We were going after surveyors, and we flushed $5 million right down the toilet. Okay? There are not many people that live to see another day after that happens. But we truly did have something that was revolutionary, and we knew it. We knew it. And the president of this company at the time, he was Swedish, wonderful man. He came up to us, and he basically said, in no uncertain terms, we were boys to him. Boys, it takes 20 years to get a new technology into surveying, and you've been doing this about 20 months. So we still think there's potential here. But here's what we're going to do. We want to acquire your technology and sell it into construction. And then we're going to let you go pursue whatever else it is that you want to do. And we thought about it. We didn't think about it all that long. We thought, great, let's get the heck out of this market, because it's a hard market to get into, obviously. And they have a lock on it. So let's license our technology, and let's turn our focus to something that we really want to do. Okay? And we always had a dream that we were ultimately going to build the indoor GPS system. Everybody knew about outdoor GPS. But one of the issues that we had was we weren't accurate enough. And I don't have a business card on me. But ultimately, we had to measure to 1/10 of a millimeter to even play in that market. In construction, you can measure to 1 centimeter and have multiple applications. Inside, though, for aerospace, you had to measure the thickness of a business card. So by working with this company for a number of years, we had evolved our technology to the point where we felt like we could do that. So we said, yes, we'll take that chance. Here, you take our technology. We licensed the patents to them, and we sent 5 of our engineers to Ohio, hard as that was to do, and said, they can work for you, right? And we'll walk away from it. And we immediately turned our attention to aerospace. And you'll hear this with startups. Timing is everything. Everyone will tell you that, no, I'm a genius. I'm a genius. That's how I sold my company and made a ton of money. But often it comes down to just being in the right place at the right time. And for us, that's what happened. So we had this technology. We started immediately calling it indoor GPS. And back in the early days of Google, believe it or not, right? People had started to search for indoor GPS, and they all started coming to us. And one day we got this call from Boeing, and they said, you know what, we're building this brand new factory for this brand new plane that's either going to be a supersonic cruiser or the Dreamliner, which is now the 787. You all heard about that in the news recently. I was not involved with that issue. So they said, we're going to build this, and not only are we building a brand new plane, that's what the public hears. We're actually changing entirely our manufacturing process. The plane's going to be carbon fiber. We're going to have parts of it made all over the world. In fact, parts of it were in Japan, parts of it were in Europe, parts of it were in Kansas City. And then we're going to bring all this together under one roof, and we're going to piece this thing together. And we want the line basically to be like a manufacturing line in an auto plant, where it's a moving line, and things are coming together, and before you know it, the plane goes out the back door. But we can't do that now. But if we had your indoor GPS technology, we could do that. Because as we bring these parts together, if we could fly them together in real time, and for them, real time is not this fast. It's like incrementally, you know, millimeters at a time. We can get planes out faster. We can make more planes, and we can actually change our entire business model. To remember the phrase, right? So we said, great. That's exactly what we can do. We didn't have any idea how we were going to do it, but we said, yes, that's exactly what we can do. We'll put lasers in all of your ceilings, and we'll create this constellation of lasers everywhere. It'll be fantastic. So we started this project with Boeing, and about a month later, we get this call from Airbus. This is great. You're like, oh, we're building this super jumbo called the 380. And we'd really like to kick Boeing's, so why don't you come and work with us? We're like, sure, we'll come right over to Germany. So we flew over to Germany, and of course there, the problems were the same as Boeing had, but bigger, because they had a bigger plane. Oh yeah, we'll do this. We didn't know how, but we said, yeah, we'll do that. So now we're on 2 continents at the same time. And about a month after that, we got a call from a company that I used to call Bombardier back when I was in Southwest Virginia, but most of you here would know it's Bombardier, right, from Canada. They said, you know what? We're building this fantastic new regional jet, and we really want indoor GPS to be in all of our plants. So we said, yes, we can definitely do that. So we had, in the course of like 2 months, 3 of the top companies in aerospace, and we got the final one not long after that. Lockheed called up and said, you know what? We're building this thing called the Joint Strike Fighter. You ever heard of it? We're like, we hadn't heard of it. Oh yeah, we've heard of it. Yeah, we've heard of it. This is a really big project, and we got all this stuff going in Dallas, and you got to come down and help us because we're trying to make this plane very stealthy, and we've got to put this material in there so no one can see it, and we don't have any way to map where the material goes, and we really need your indoor GPS. And we said, yeah, we definitely can do that too. So off we went to Dallas. So we had, in the course of several months, got probably 4 of the premier plane aerospace projects at that time saying we want it. About 4 months later, we got a call from a company in Europe and said, you know what, we'd like to buy you guys. And we're like, oh yeah, we can definitely do that. Please, please, we've been at this for a while. Of course, we didn't really say, we said, well, we don't know, because you probably don't have enough money. So, we don't know, maybe you can come over and talk to us about it. So they came over, and we realized it was a good opportunity for us, because again, timing is everything. And we knew that, look, actually building out and rolling this out in factories across the world wasn't going to be the easiest thing in the world, and we were still small company. We'd been through several phases. We had actually been through 3 phases, and we were still kind of a startup after 10 years because we literally had reinvented ourselves 3 times. We're like, we've got to do it now. We've got to strike where the iron is hot. So that company bought us. They were subsequently acquired by Nikon. You all know about Nikon. They also have a group that's involved in industrial measurement, and they acquired them. The reality of it is, though, about a year and a half after we were acquired, a lot of these projects got put on hold. It's when the economy tanked. So we got in and out at the right time. right? So I'll leave you with the final thought that, look, timing is everything, right? But there's always an exciting, hopefully, end to every story. So let me spend a couple more minutes really quickly going through what it's going to look like if you do get into the step 2 and come into our 4-week program, so that you have an idea. And please raise your hand and interrupt me. Now, I already have mentioned, we've talked about the business model canvas, okay? We're going to really spend a lot of time, though, again, at that intersection between customer segments and value proposition. Yes?
In terms of what you guys are doing, now, what are you, in terms of your group, what are you guys looking for in terms of trying to acquire, just in case everything happened to go so well? Are you guys looking for percentage or?
Oh, we're not looking for anything. The question was, what are we looking for, meaning MTech, yeah. Nothing. So we don't take any stake or interest in your company at this particular point in time. If you're coming into this program, it's all free to you, right? Which is what the first word every startup wants to hear. Free. Free. Everything must be free, right? So it's free to you for now. If you come into our Venture Accelerator program later, then there's usually a piece of equity that we take based on how long you're in the company. I mean, in the accelerator, but that usually is not all that long. And by the way, it's a minimal amount of equity. So we can talk about that later. But for this program, nothing. It's not going to cost you anything. In fact, if you get in, you're going to get money. But it's even better than not costing you. You're getting money. Coming back to this real quick, and sorry to get in the weeds here. So let's just remember here, value proposition, customer segment. So we're going to start with filling this out. It's not on the handout that you have, but I will make sure you get it. You're going to start by filling this out. You're going to start with, well, what do I think my customer assumptions are, who these people are, what do they want to do, what are their daily jobs, what are their pains, what are the things that they want to do better. And then you're going to put down what you think your product or service is actually going to do for them. How's it going to map to what it is they want? Okay? And then you're going to do this. Click. You're going to do this. Okay? The most painful thing in the world for most of you. You're going to actually go out and talk to people, okay? We've already been through this. I'm going to reiterate it again, okay? You're going to go talk to people. So what's your, you're going to talk to customers. What's your biggest headache? Not here's this cool technology, what do you think of it? What are your real pains here? What are you trying to do that we could maybe help you with? Right? Inevitably, you're going to come back and say, oh, you know what, we were real wrong. We were wrong, right? We're going to strike off some of these things that we thought about the customer because that wasn't right. You're going to take those off. You're going to come over here. You're going to do the same thing with your value proposition. Okay? It's an iterative thing. The point basically being here is you're going to go back and forth till you get it right, or right enough. So where now you know the customer jobs, you know their pains, you know the gains they want, and you're mapping what your product or service does so that it meets it. Okay? That's the concept. Now, in 4 weeks' time, can we get you there? I hope so. Depends on how much time you put into it. We certainly will get you a long way towards that. Yes?
I'm looking at step 3 where you actually make these assumptions. Given that those are all most of the time wrong, does it even make sense to just go directly to the customer answer?
Well, I'm going to flip back there. So really it's this one. It's a good question. Why even guess? Well, because inevitably, at some point in your life, if not now, later, you're going to think you know what the customer wants. So we will actually ask you to do this, okay? Because it's more about understanding this concept that even when you think you have the best thing to offer them, that often the assumptions are wrong. Now, if you don't have a lot of assumptions, that's fine. It shows here a handful, but if there are only two, that's fine. It's not about numbers. In fact, the best value propositions, if you list them, usually it's a single one. It's usually a single compelling value proposition will be the most powerful startup idea. It's clear exactly what you do. Because if you have to list 4 or 5 value propositions, what that means is you're probably reaching. The customer's got to buy off on all 4 before they would buy it. If it's one compelling one, And I'm working with a team now in this NSF thing, and they're doing clean and safe water. And I keep telling them, you've got the ultimate value proposition. We save lives. People know what that is. You don't need any more, right? So anyway, the basic point is it's not about the numbers, but we do want you to put assumptions up there that you can go out and test, okay? Any other questions as I flip back here? Yes?
In that application, do you want us to sort of give you a plan of, say we have a customer in mind and we have a plan to sort of go to these customers, like say South by Southwest, for example.
Right.
Should we detail that in the plan saying, hey, during this 4-week program, we can really use the money to go to these customers?
Yes. Okay. Excellent question. I want to repeat it so everybody hears it. The question was the following. If we have an idea of who our customers are and we have a notional plan of how we'd like to go talk to them, should we put that in our executive summary? Yes. Please do. I mean, it's helpful to us. Again, the folks that are asked to participate in phase 2, it's not a judgment of whether your idea necessarily is better or not. It will be a judgment, though, of are you ready for phase 2? Are you ready to undertake that process? So if we get a sense that you already kind of know and you have a plan, that's definitely going to be something we take into consideration. So if you do, put that in. Yes?
Is that something you can do when you're still at the stage where you think you can make what they want work, but you haven't proven it yet?
Yes. So the question is, can we go out and talk to customers or have a plan for talking to customers when we're not exactly sure we can do what we think we can do? Is that fair enough? And the answer is yes, you can do it at that phase. As I mentioned, you know, we were the first ones to say yes, we can build indoor GPS. Yes, we can do it. Now we had a fairly good reason to think that we could, but we didn't know for sure that we could do 50 laser units in the Boeing facility. We knew we could do 4. Well, 4, we can do 50 then, right? And we're like, okay, yeah, we can find a way to do 50. It's really more important that you are thinking of, okay, because even if your thing doesn't work, you can still go talk to the customer about their pains and problems, those type of needs, and you might come back and realize, no, we don't need to work on this thing we thought about. We actually have a better idea. Because what we heard was the following, and we have a way to solve that. So you don't necessarily have to have an exact solution that you know works. Because the reality is, again, we're still really focused on understanding the problems that the customer has, the needs that they have. And that has nothing to do with your technology, right? If you understand that, though, you might be able to provide a solution to them. That's where it's your technology. That's where you have to figure out whether you have something. Ultimately, if you introduce a minimum viable product, then of course it has to work at some level, right? But we're not worried about that now. And if you come into this process and you think you have a minimum viable product, or you think you just have a good idea, we're not going to judge necessarily on that. We're going to look more at, for this idea, for this product, do they have something that they can actually take out, do the customer discovery process, and get something out of it. Sometimes it's very helpful to have that minimum viable product or something close to it, because it's so specific. But oftentimes it's not. Hopefully that didn't confuse it. But yeah, if you don't have something that's working, you don't have a product that's working, don't worry about that. If you have an idea of something you want to test, one of the things I didn't mention, but I will real quickly. I love this methodology for a number of reasons. Okay, I'm going to start with the following. Fundamentally, I think it's a methodology that can be used to test ideas. Forget starting a business. It's a methodology that can be used to test your idea first. Ultimately, it's going to be a methodology that hopefully will get you to creating a business. But it has multi-purpose. It's very broadly applicable, in my mind. So again, this is an iterative process. We ultimately want you to get to the point where, okay, we've identified what we think really the customer wants and what our product can do to meet it. Whoops. So we're going to create an MVP, minimum viable product. Again, you may not get there and probably won't in that 4 weeks, but this is where we want to head you towards. You can go through this build, measure, learn cycle. You'll read about this if you pick up that Lean Startup book. Build, measure, learn. Build, measure, learn. Very scientific, right? Again, it appeals to the engineer in us. Same thing with the business. You can build, measure, and learn. Okay? We'll talk more specifically about the things that you want to measure and what you want to learn from them. But we'll save that for another conversation. Ultimately, this is the Holy Grail. Okay, this is the holy grail. So folks of you that know who Mark Andreessen is, founder of Netscape, now an investor and a preeminent startup expert, wrote a very interesting blog, one of my favorite blogs. And if you want to read any blog, this is one I'd start with. It's called The Only Thing That Matters. Okay? And what he starts with the following premise. Most venture capitalists will tell you they look at three things. They look at the team, they look at the market opportunity, how big is it, and they look at whether you have a product market fit. And he said if you talk to 100 VCs, you'll probably have split third, a third, a third, right? Or you'll have most of them say it's a team. I always invest in the team, right? It's a team I invest in. I still hear people say this. I know angel investors that will invest in people. Because it sounds very good, doesn't it? I'm investing in you, right? You're great. I'm investing in you. Don't believe it. Don't believe it if they tell you that. Because the reality is with the VC is they don't care about you. If you're not the one, they're going to replace you. Which they should. They've invested, right? You can have a great, big market opportunity. It doesn't matter, though, if no one wants to buy whatever it is that you're offering them in that huge market. So his point was, no, the only thing that really matters is this product market fit. And don't necessarily buy when a VC or an angel investor will tell you, or you will read in the press, that people invest in people, they invest in big opportunities. Sounds good. Who wouldn't? Right? The reality is, though, if you don't have the product market fit, you will not succeed. Right? I've learned that lesson the hard way. You know, most entrepreneurs have. That's the benefit of coming to MTech, by the way. I'm going to take a quick little detour and tell you that one of the benefits of working with us is that we've all been, and still are, because once you have been, you never aren't, a technology entrepreneur, right? It's what gets me up every day. I'm excited to work with people, and the great thing about working here is I get to work with lots of startups at the same time. And hopefully help you prevent making some of the mistakes I did. That's what everybody wants to do, right? Make it easier. So again, this is what we're ultimately driving towards. The whole idea behind our process is getting to this point. Because some of you are going to have ideas that they aren't the next Twitter. It's not going to be the next Facebook. But it might be a great business for you, right? And we don't want to exclude those types of companies either. Because there are lots of ways to make a living and good money. And I will personally say that my startup experience was the most phenomenal thing. And I've tried to repeat it, but it's very hard to do. You know, I worked on the space shuttle. I went a mile underground in one of the most exotic scientific labs in the world and did a variety of things that I would have never done working for a big company. And so I encourage you all to pursue that entrepreneurial bent that you may have. That's all I wanted to actually talk about, but we do have plenty of time left for questions. Does anyone have any questions that haven't been asked? Yes?
The blog was by Andreessen.
The blog was by Andreessen, yes. It's a very good blog. I've summarized and given you the cliff notes, but I'm sure I left out some good points, so I would highly recommend it. Yes?
I've got a big, difficult question here.
Okay. I like big, difficult questions. How about a simple, easy answer?
If you can,
Yeah. All right. Let's go.
business model canvas.
Right.
Looking at development of a for-profit company effort as an entrepreneur. What if you're looking at a social venture?
Right.
What do you do? Business model canvas doesn't really fit for a social venture.
Right.
How do you modify this to work for a social venture?
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna flip back here real quickly because I'm gonna first of all say it's a great question because we often get this. Sorry, I'm gonna flip back here real quick. Hold on. Don't get seasick. All right. Now, what we would say, the answer to that is the following. It still applies, but there is a difference, right? Because you have the triple bottom line kind of concept, right? It isn't just about making the money. But you still have the following. At a minimum, right, you're going to have customer segments that you're going to go after, and there are going to be certain value propositions that you need to understand related to that venture. Likewise, All of these other things are going to also still apply, but in a slightly different context. Now, when it comes to revenue streams, that's where it maybe gets a little different. But you still are going to be generating, in most cases, revenue to cover your costs, right? But more importantly, because we really spend most of our time now, and I want to emphasize this, up front with the value proposition and the customer segments. Okay? Not that the other stuff is easy, it's not. But if you don't get those things right, you won't get the following things right. So even for a non-for-profit or social enterprise, you still have to think of these things. You're still going to have key partners that you need. You're going to have key resources and activities, right, that you need to consider. So it still applies. It's just a slightly different application of it, if that makes sense. So especially at the level that we're going to really go into in the beginning. Okay? But it's a good question because a lot of people have that question. And again, from my perspective, as I said, the very highest level, I use this methodology to test ideas. I work in the Arlington Public School System in Virginia, and I've used this there to vet ideas about curriculum changes. I'm not worried about revenue streams, but I'm worried about going out and talking to customers and understanding what it is they want. And I use the same sort of methodology there. Yes?
Question about the executive summary. What I've heard about writing a business plan is that you do everything else first, including all your financial forecasts and analysis, all your research, and then the executive summary is going to be the very last thing that you write. Right. So I mean, if I just submit one whole package, just my business plan, and relabel it executive summary, is that going to suffice for your guys', or do you want something that's very abbreviated and very concise?
Okay, so this is a very good question. The question was, look, isn't an executive summary exactly that? A summary of something I've already written. Literally, it's true, and in fact, I think sometimes when I think about it, the terminology we might need to change, because it really isn't an executive summary of something you've done. We want a brief overview of your business, your idea, what you want to do. Obviously, if you've gone to the trouble already of writing a business plan and you have an executive summary that you think summarizes this, that's fine. But again, that terminology, executive summary, probably isn't 100% accurate here. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought it up. It is, again, more of a summary of your idea. This is what we'd like to, this is what we think, this is what we would like to do, this is what we plan to do, that kind of thing. That's enough. We certainly don't expect it to have financials, as I mentioned, because we won't pay any attention to those. Yes?
What's make it to phase 2, what's the time commitment over that 4 weeks? Is that a 5-day week? Is it 1-day week type thing?
Yeah. Another great question, and there's no precise answer. I will say the following, because the question was this: if we get into phase 2 and we enter your MCOR 4-week program, how much time is that going to take? The short, easy answer is as much time as you can dedicate to it, right? The more practical answer is, you should be probably expecting 8 to 10 hours a week, and I'm making that up a little bit on the fly. I know that when we do the National Science Foundation sort of I-Corps process, we require that they talk to 100 customers, and we say everyone must expect 15 hours a week. Having taken teams through, I can tell you that can be more than 15, it can be less than 15. But I would, it's a relatively serious commitment. That's the other reason we want to talk to people before they come into phase 2. Some of you, and I hope none of you, but some of you may say, sounds cool, I don't have time for it. And then I'm going to try my best to convince you of why you ought to do it and why it's going to be beneficial to you. But there is a commitment of time. I would expect it to be in that 8 to 10 hour range to be realistic, and maybe more depending on how much time you want to put into it. It doesn't have an upper limit. As I like to say, startups are not part-time. Yes? Yes?
Yeah. Essentially, when we were designing the MCOR, we were saying it's around a 5-hour-a-week commitment. In addition to, every 4 weeks, you would actually do like a workshop session 2 of the weeks, and then the other weeks you have one-on-one with your mentors, and then probably 5 hours outside of that.
Right. Yeah, so it's a little bit up to you. As Kim points out, we'll have some specific times that you have to meet with us, but it will not be, it'll be like the 5-hour type of.
I just want to make sure it wasn't like a full-time, outside your day job.
No. I mean, it could be if you wanted it to be, but we're not going to expect that. Yes?
Financial aside, if we did the research to know exactly or close to how much it's going to cost to build the different steps on it, at least the cost parts of it, do you want us to report that in the executive summary?
I mean, if you have this level of information, the question is, if we have cost information for what we're going to do, should we submit it? If you want to submit it, that's fine, because it's certainly some learning that you've already done, and it sort of fits in this concept of a cost structure. But we're going to also take the following sort of thought process. That's great, but do they, he or she, or they, really know, right, what the customer wants? So it'll be if you follow. So it's great that you've done it. We're not going to weight that heavily. I would suggest to folks that, that they stick to their primary one. I'm not going to say you can't submit more than one. Based on, is that idea really the best one? It's more of the, is this person committed to it? Do they seem to be ready for going into this sort of 4-week process? Have they put some thought into their idea? If you just say, look, here are 10 ideas, I think one of them might be good. We're like, yeah, one of them might be good. Pick one. So I'd suggest one. Yes?
On the video, is that like, are you supposed to like give a presentation about your idea, or what are you supposed to do? I prefer to show it, or which I don't have one, but
Right.
I mean, what are you supposed to do?
Right. Yeah, it's a good question. In person, elaborate a little bit about your idea. It doesn't have to be formatted to be a specific thing. You don't have to do a demo. You don't have to walk me through a presentation of bullets. It can be kind of the format you want it to be, but we expect it to be really sort of a summary. Can you tell me a story about what it is that you want to do? At the end of that 3 minutes, I don't want to be confused. And if I'm confused, then it probably hasn't done what it needs to do. So tell us in a very concise way, to the extent that you can with a story, of what it is that you want to do. Don't get into a lot of detail about your technology, because we probably won't be able to follow it. Right? Put it in the context of why a user might want this thing, or why it might be a good product idea. Keep it at a fairly high level. And you have a lot of freedom to do what you want with the video. It's not scripted.
In the rules, we do give a couple bullet point ideas of a couple things to include, like the value proposition and like that. But other than that, it's open in format. So the rules that you do.
This is on your like, website.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember seeing that.
Yeah, they should be posted by now. We will give you a little bit of guidance on whether there's like 2 things that we're really looking for in the video, but other than that, it's up to you.
Oh, okay, because I sort of wondering if you want to hear PowerPoints or something.
Yeah, no, the rules explain that, and also on the question of what are we looking for in the executive summary. It also went through the key sections we're asking for the executive.
Yeah, and just so it's clear on the video, it doesn't necessarily have to be you sitting in front of a camera talking. If you want to show a few slides and or things like that, you're free to do that. So don't think movie when we say video, if that makes sense. So you can mingle things. It could be a picture where you're talking about a need, or so it doesn't have to be you sitting in front of a camera talking. It could be literally a series of pictures or slides and you overdubbing your story. Okay, so you have a lot of freedom. As Kim mentioned, if you look at the couple things that we're expected to see there, then you have a lot of freedom to format the way you want. Okay, any other questions? Oh, yes.
So, and one more other question about the video. Is it imperative that you show your team on the video, or is that, you don't have it, is that worse than having it?
It's not imperative. If you have a team and each one of the team members wants to introduce themselves or do a little blurb on something, that's fine too. But you don't have to have that. No, it's not expected.
In the rules, we said that, you and your team should be present during at least some small portion of the video. So again, you can link up a slide and prototype of your team. But we think it's something like this, we actually see that.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't worry. It depends on whether you have a team. If you don't have a team, it's only you, that's fine. If you do have a team, then it's always helpful for us to know who that team is. But only one has to really do the primary narration. Yes?
Not a question, but 2 suggestions. Using Jing, which is free, to put your video together. And for storytelling, Nancy Duarte's Resonate, which is it's a really good, I think it's appropriate.
Right.
So don't get into the weeds, but tell the story.
Right. And I think it's both excellent points. Yeah.
The software is Jing.
Yeah.
It's free. You can put together whatever you want for a 5-minute video.
Right.
And the book is Nancy Duarte, UARTE. She has a couple books. One's called Slideology, but the really good one is called Resonate. And really talks about how good stories and speeches and presentations are put together.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Good suggestion. I've used Jing too. So again, anything you all, we're not expecting highly professional. We understand, but the video really is your opportunity to kind of put a little creativity in there. Yes.
Like, what material are you expecting to be in the video? I know you said that we should be really putting numbers or projections. Should we include like designs or like just in general what is expected to be in the video?
Yeah, so the question is, what's really expected to be in the video? And other than the couple of points that Kim makes that are on the website, I'll say the following as a general statement. We don't really care to have a lot of detail about your technology, which is going to be inherently what you want to talk about probably. We would rather hear a story of why you think someone will want to buy it and what they would use it for. That's going to be more compelling to us because it shows that you've thought about that, as opposed to this is my technology and how it works. That's not so interesting. It might be interesting to me as an engineer, but it's not so interesting to me from a business concept, because that isn't going to help me. Help me understand why somebody might want whatever it is that you're working on, right? That's more compelling, right? Yes?
One question related to technology and technology disclosure. Who exactly sees the video ahead of time?
Right.
And what can we do for an NDA?
Right. Okay. Yeah, so the first answer is I will see it, and at least 2 other people at MTech will see the video, but no one outside the university will see it. Secondly, more importantly, you should not be putting anything in there that requires an NDA or requires any kind of worry that you're worried about disclosing, because that's not of interest to us. We want to know what you want to do for a business. We don't really want to know the details of your technology, because we don't want to require that of people to have NDAs and all of that stuff in place, because you don't need to be telling me that level of detail. I don't need to know that. Now, if you really think for your specific thing you must disclose something, then we'd be happy to talk to you about that. But in general, we don't want that. In fact, the same applies when you go talk to customers, because the last thing you want to do is show up with an NDA. Most customers will say, I'm not signing that, so it'll be a real barrier for you.
At least two other people.
At least 2 other people. Yes.
Do we know ahead of time who?
Yes, we do. I do. I know who it is. I don't know who. You know who it is, but yeah.
Would I know?
I don't know. Craig Dye will be one of them. Kim will be one of them in the back of the room. I'll be one of them. So it'll at least be the 3 of us and probably 1 other person if we can get them to do it.
Would it be considered a public disclosure though? You actually put something in there?
Yeah, I mean, that's a legal thing. And again, please don't put anything in there that you're concerned about. I mean, there should not be anything in your video that's disclosure worthy at this point. And if you have any questions about that, you can certainly ask us. But, I don't want stuff in there that's going to need a disclosure. I guess I got to reiterate one more time. I am not interested in your technology. I am interested in the business opportunity that you see. Okay? If that makes sense. Right, so that I'm interested personally in your technology, but not in this sense. I don't want it in that executive summary in the video. And same if you go out and talk to customers. We will highly encourage you, don't disclose. You don't need to have an NDA to have these conversations. We don't want that. That's a barrier to conversations, and we don't want that. All right, any other questions? Okay, let me check. All right, we got 10 more minutes. There may be more free food in the back. Okay. All right, well, if not, thanks for coming, and we hope to see you guys soon.